So good evening. Welcome to the final class on the question paper analysis of UGC Net English, December 2021, Shift 1. And this is presented by Professor Academy, Chennai. So today we are going to look at the last 5 questions, 96 to 100. 96. Which two of the following writers does A.D. Hope address through his poetic responses in a book of answers? So you have 4 writers below. Capital A, Tolstoy, B, Dostoevsky, C, Malame, D, Goethe, right? And you have the options. Option A and C only, in the sense Tolstoy and Malame only. B, A and D only, Tolstoy and Goethe only. Then C, B and C only, Dostoevsky and Malame only. Then D, B and D only, Dostoevsky and Goethe only. So this is a tough question, and there is no logic why this kind of a question is asked. But we have 2 Russian writers, Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. Then we have a French writer, Malame. Then German writer, Goethe. It's tough to eliminate 2 because it's an entirely different question. At least some of us may be aware of this writer, A.D. Hope, an Australian writer. Maybe the book, a book of answer, but it's tough what he has said in this book. Okay, so let's check out the answer. Answer is A and C only, Tolstoy and Malame only. So when we get questions like this, either we have to go with instinct, or sometimes do you think both Russian writers could not be referred to by A.D. Hope, both Tolstoy and Dostoevsky? Definitely A. If you go for Tolstoy, then we could have eliminated 2 options. So that's how we can tackle questions like this. Anyway, let's look at this Australian writer, A.D. Hope. When we say A.D. Hope, these are some of his famous poems. Australia, which is often prescribed whenever we read Australian literature, this poem, Australia by A.D. Hope, is a famous one. Then we have The Death of the Bird, then The Return from the Freudian Islands. Then we have 3 poetry collections here. One, The Wandering Islands. That was his first poetry collection, published in 1955. Then imitating Alexander Pope and his work, then he came out with Dunciad Minor, an heroic poem. Then Orpheus. These are some of his famous collections. The question came from this work, this collection, a book of answers. What is this book about? What is this poetry collection is about? Here we get a famous poem, and he takes a famous poem by an author, poet. Then same poem, but from a different point of view. For example, we have got Andrew Marvell's To His Coy Mistress, very famous poem. But here is a poem by A.D. Hope. It's a kind of a reply given by the mistress to Marvell himself. So his own character speaking to Marvell. So that's why this book is called a book of answers. Someone answering the writer, answering to the writer. So we have his coy mistress to Mr. Marvell. So we have this metaphysical poet, Andrew Marvell, famous poem, To His Coy Mistress. So here the mistress herself is speaking to Marvell. So look at some of the lines here. The ambiguous mistress next you sit beside this graceless epithet. So the epithet refers to, an epithet means adjective. So what is the adjective? Coy, very shy. So who wants to be persuaded by the lover. Then mistress is an ambiguous word. It has a lot of connotations. When we say mistress, one, miss, one is not married, one is a lover of someone. Mistress also means someone who is not married, but kind of has an affair with someone. So that's why here the speaker says, the ambiguous mistress next to you said beside this graceless epithet. Coy mistress, sir, who gave you leave to wear my heart upon your sleeve? So here the mistress is asking, how dare you? represent my feelings without my consent. So that's why this book is called Book of Answers. So A.D. Hope takes a celebrated work and rewrites it, or kind of a retelling. Then let's go to question number 97. Which of these did the Wood's Despatch 1854 seek to propagate? So you need not worry about this, because this is something to with the colonial period where someone wrote this dispatch or gave this dispatch. So with our understanding, we can tackle this question, right? So you have statement number 1. So the dispatch is about import Western knowledge to Indians. B, restrict access to English learning in India. C, educate British officers in Sanskrit and Persian. D, create a class of public servants. So before we go to the options, do you think, Britishers, our colonizers, they wanted us to, they want to create something. So what are the possibilities we have? Number 1, first is possible, right? They want us to learn or get to know about Western literature. So that could be a possible one. Do we think they want to restrict? They don't want us to learn English? That's illogical. B. Then the C is also seems impossible. Educate British officers in Sanskrit and Persian. That's impossible. Then the third is a possibility. They wanted to create a class of public servants so that they can serve, the officers, the colonial officers here. So if you logically eliminate B and C, then you're left with the correct answer. So answer is C, A and D only. So you need not have some familiarity with this text, this dispatch, but with our common understanding of colonialism and how it functioned here, we can easily eliminate this, eliminate few options and arrive at the answer. Anyway, let's look at this dispatch. What is called, what is this Wood's Despatch 1854? So there was a board of control of the British East India Company, and it had a president, a name of the president, the then president, Sir Charles Wood. So that's why it's called Wood's Despatch. So he sent a dispatch in 1854 to the then Governor General of India, to Lord Dalhousie. So what is the purpose? So this dispatch is all about the education which we desire to be, in the sense the board, to see extended in India of European knowledge. They want to impart European knowledge to the Indians. So that is a primary purpose. But this is a very significant dispatch when it comes to the education system in India. Why? Let's see some of the recommendations and suggestions given by this board. So number 1, they wanted to create an educational department in India. So as a kind of a machinery in the British government in several presidencies in India, right? So especially they want to create a university at Kolkata, then a university Bombay. Then they also recommended creating a university at Madras. And all these universities should be based on the London University, so which should be the model to create universities in India. So this is one of the famous suggestions given by that board. Then aim, impart a good secular education, not something based on religion or any particular religion, kind of a secular scientific knowledge. So that's what they want to impart here. And it said schools should exist in every district in India, and there should be scholarships to encourage students to come to schools and learn. Then one of the important points. So why taking such a going for this kind of a task to spread the spread of education in India? Simple. One of the motives for them is to create a class of servants who are well educated, who can serve the British officers. So they say, enabling you to obtain the services of intelligent and trustworthy persons in every department of government. But we should also appreciate this dispatch. Why? Because it gave importance to schools, universities, and also to female education in India. Then in sum, 1854, this is the exact crux of Wood's dispatch. So the board said, we have declared that our primary subject is to extend European knowledge, number one, throughout all classes of the people, not just the elite or one caste. So that is very important. That's why this is still considered an important dispatch. It's not a particular section in Indian society, to everyone. So that's important. And number two, to extend European knowledge, not the knowledge that had been here provided to people. Then we have shown that this object must be effected by means of the English language. But there is a difference. So you can use the English language to impart this knowledge in the higher branches of instruction in colleges and universities. But in the primary level, you can use vernacular languages of India to the great mass of the people. Or you can also use both, a kind of a bilingual means to reach out to these people. So this is the crux of Wood's dispatch. You can compare this with Macaulay's Minutes of Education, earlier one. So Macaulay gave a speech to the Parliament of England, so which is similar to this one. So what you can do, you can compare and contrast Macaulay's Minutes on Education, then Wood's dispatch. Then with this, let's go to question number 98. Which of the following statements is true of the working group set up by the University Grants Commission in 1978 to study the medium of instruction in higher education? So this question is connected to the previous one. Both talk about higher education in India, but this is by our own committee, our own commission, University Grants Commission. A, it argued that English as a highly developed language was best suited for India's industrial and scientific progress. B, it asserted that English had the potential to further polarize an already divided nation along socio-economic and intelligent fault lines. C, it observed that English need not be displaced as the medium of instruction through regional languages were quite ready to take over its functions. Then D, it recommended a quicker switchover of the medium of instruction from English to Indian languages. What do you think they could have recommended? Do you think it recommended a quicker switchover of the medium of instruction from English to Indian languages? That's impossible, in the sense it will take a lot of years and there will be protest, and there are also practical difficulties immediately switching from English to Indian languages. And if everybody learns a particular subject in the regional language, then the mobility from a person learning a particular field, learning in Tamil or Malayalam or Telugu, Kannada, Hindi, when they move across India, then there will be a lot of problems to understand concepts. So just think of it. Then let's go to the answer. A, it argued that English as a highly developed language was best suited for India's industrial and scientific progress. So this is what they also said, right? Wood's dispatch. So as if this commission is seconding that one. So that's why this question is connected to the previous one. Then let's go to 99. Which two of the following confirm to liberal humanist thought? Do not bother about this term, liberalist, humanist, nothing. It's something with literature, right? Think literature in general and what it does or what it doesn't do. You have statement number 1. Literature transcends the limits of the age of its origin, so it is timeless. So literature is not restricted to a particular period. It goes beyond that, so it is timeless. So number 1 statement. B, literature is untouched by the essential human nature, which is unchanging. I mean, literature is a it's a kind of not relevant to, or it doesn't capture essential human nature, which is unchanging. Do you think so? As if literature is avoiding avoid representing the essential human nature. See, literature is devoid of any purpose to enhance life or promote human values. So that's a wrong statement. Anyone reading literature can understand that. Then D, identity is a unique essence unaffected by environment and society. So what we can do, at least we can eliminate options. Definitely we can eliminate C. Literature is devoid of any purpose. So it has some purpose, or else why there are a lot of students reading this. So if we eliminate C, then we can eliminate two options. Option A and C only. Then option C, B and C only. Then we are left with two options, B, A and D only, B and D only. So D is correct, right? So we have that. We have to decide whether it's A or B. Then definitely you can find A is good. So answer is A and D only. In the sense, literature transcends the limits of the age of its origin, and so it is timeless. Then D, identity is a unique essence unaffected by environment and society. So the question is directly taken from this book, a very celebrated work, Peter Barry. Peter Barry's Beginning Theory and Introduction to Literary and Cultural Theory. So from this book, they have taken this question. So in the beginning, the opening chapter itself is there, 10 tenets of liberal humanism. So what is liberal humanism? So when we say liberal humanism, it's the study of liberal arts, which includes literature, right? And the function or the primary aim of liberal arts is to impart, the values or human values and the excellence of humans, right? So that is the function of liberal humanism. And Peter Barry lists out 10 tenets or the major points, crux of liberal humanism. Number one, good literature is of timeless significance. So this point was given there. Then two, the literary text contains its own meaning within itself. In the sense, literature is autonomous. It need not, entirely depends on the history or the period in which it is written. It has its own meaning. Yet you can compare it with, or you can study about its historical background. Nothing wrong in that. But simply put, point number two, literature is autonomous. It has its own autonomy. Then C, close reading of texts without prior ideological assumptions. So now, how do you get meaning out of a text? So should I consult a text, or should I read the text after knowing everything about that period, the author, and the ideologies subscribed to by the author and represented in the work? Not necessary. Sometimes we just take a book and we just read it, or we close read it, right? So we don't need a prior ideological assumption. Then 4, human nature is essentially unchanging. In the sense, there seems to be a different people, their nature, but ultimately we have a core. Human nature is unchanging, devoid of its environment. Then individuality transcends environmental influences. So this point was given in the question. So everyone or every human being has some basic instincts, individuality, and that individuality transcends environmental influences. So that's why we also read literature across nations. We read African literature or European literature or Latin American literature. Why? If they have different individualities, why should we read that? Then 6, what is the purpose of literature? The purpose of literature is to propagate human values. So that is the primary purpose, to enhance human lives. Okay. Then 7, the form and content. So what is the form of literature? In the sense, it can be poetry, it can be short story, novel, drama, or it could be of epistolary novel or sonnet, any form. but the form and the content, what we represent, should be fused together. There should be an organic unity in that. Then point number 8, sincerity. Whatever we represent, whatever is represented, there should be some sincerity. If it should not be superficial, right? So you should know, or simply put, sincerity is all about the capacity for human compassion. That's what literature should put across to its readers. Then that sincerity resides within the language of the literature. So we have to convey it through a language. Then 9, the defining feature of literature. What is its defining feature? It's not prescribing. It's not prescription. It is only a kind of a description or suggestion. The silent showing of something rather than explaining it. So unlike other fields, literature can't say, hey, this is what you should do. No, it doesn't prescribe things. It only shows. See, look at this guy like Oedipus or Hamlet. So say tragedy. So you can also face this kind of problems. So beware of that. So it's only kind of a warning or showing. Then final one, the job of criticism. What should a critic do or critics do? Critics' primary job, interpret the text. So they are the mediators between the text and the reader. Our interpretation or criticism, tries to bridge between the text and the reader, right? So these are the 10 tenets of liberal humanism or literature. Then we come to the final question of today's class and also this series. Question 100. Which two of the following are true according to the documentation style prescribed by the 8th edition of the MLA handbook? So we have 4 statements here. Number 1, if the title page of a book contains an imprint as well as the publisher's name, omit the imprint and use the publisher's name. B, while giving a URL, copy it from the web browser but omit HTTP or HTTPS. Then C, if a quotation extends to more than 5 lines, set it off from the text as block intended an inch from the left margin. Then D, long titles should be abbreviated using the first letter of keywords typed in uppercase without intervening space. Okay. So number 1, this question is all about research. If you have some familiarity with writing research papers or dissertations, MA, MPhil or PhD, then this could be an easy one. Or if you're doing MPhil or PhD, then definitely you should read this book, MLA 8th, now in its 9th edition. So let's look at the answer, then we will go through one by one. Answer is A, in the sense A and B only. If the title page of a book contains an imprint as well as the publisher's name, omit the imprint and use the publisher's name. Then while giving a URL, copy it from the web browser, but omit HTTP or HTTPS. Okay. Let's look at the rules given here, or what is wrong. Number 1, what is an imprint? So look at the screen. Example is straightly taken from MLA Handbook 8th edition. An October book, that's an imprint. An imprint is a kind of a brand name. So it's a kind of a brand name. Again, now below which you have a lot of publishers, right? It's a kind of a brand name. So if a title or the book carries both, the imprint as well as the publisher, what you have to do? So this is the rule given in the book. If the title page contains an imprint as well as the publisher's name, omit the imprint. So what we have to do here, we need not bother about an October book. That's a brand name, imprint. Remove that. Publisher, the MIT Press. So when we quote or when we go for bibliography, writing bibliography, we have to focus only on the MIT Press. We need not bother about the imprint. So this is suggestion number 1. Then URL. So these days we copy. We read and we lot of text on the internet. So we have to acknowledge what we take it from the internet. So we can give the URL. So this is the rule. When giving a URL, copy it in full from your web browser. It need not be short. It should be entire thing. But you can omit the HTTP or HTTPS. Okay. So there's another suggestion. Avoid citing URLs produced by shortening services. So like bit ly, no, you need not shorten. It has to be in full. Okay. So this is another rule. Next, indentation. So whenever we write papers, we quote from literary texts. But if that quotation extends to more than 4 lines, then what we have to do? So we have to indent. In the sense, you say this is a block taken from a particular work. So in order to show that, what you have to do, you have to leave half an inch from the left margin. Then we can quote, right, without quotation marks. So that's also important. So let the example given in the text itself, MLA handbook. At the conclusion of the novel, I mean, Lord of the Flies, Ralph, one of the characters, realizing the horror of his action, is overcome by. Then after the word by, the text is taken from, straightly taken from the novel, Lord of the Flies. So we have half an inch from the left margin. See the entire text. Great shuddering spasm of grief that seemed to wrench his whole body. Then the entire text. Right? Then finally full stop. So when you go for indentation, you should not go for quotation mark. Right? So if you do not go for, I mean, if the lines are less than 4, you can insert within the text. Right? Injection. Then you can use quotation mark. So when you go for indentation, half an inch from the left margin, no quotation marks, full stop, then you have to give the page number. I mean the text. This particular quotation is taken from this particular text in the page number. Here 186. So then within parentheses. So this is the rule, a basic rule. Anyone writing a research paper should know this, right? Then we'll go for the final one. Titles of works. A title in a parenthetical citation. So here it's very clear. A title can be lengthy one, right? Sometimes you can quote the lengthy title, right? But when you go for this parenthetical citation, like the earlier one. So the earlier one, the parenthetical citation, we went only for the number 186. Why? Because the text is mentioned earlier, Lord of the Flies. So we need not write Lord of the Flies space 186. We need not go for that. It is already there. You have written that. But sometimes we can't write the name of the text in full in the sentence. So at that time, we can refer to the title in the brackets or within parentheses. But we can't write Lord of the Flies. You know, if you are doing research on Lord of the Flies, every time you quote, you can't say Lord of the Flies, Lord of the Flies. No, you need not do that. You can go for the short one, right? That's the meaning here. A title in a parenthetical citation often has to be abbreviated. And it should be, often has to be abbreviated. Sometimes you can use it in full, right? Usually the title is shortened to its initial noun phrase. For instance, if you have Shakespeare's Coriolanus, we simply write CO or full stop. That's all. It means Coriolanus. So this is the rule. Okay. So with this, let's end this class. But before that, we have a question. So should I follow 8th edition or 9th edition now? So if you're studying MA, MPhil or PhD, consult with your guide or supervisor. For net exam, you should go for 9th edition. Why? Simple. 9th edition is an extension of the 8th edition. So no problem at all. Everything is included in the 9th edition. It's only an expansion. So you can read 9th edition, which also covers 8th edition. So there's no problem. So we can go for 9th edition. So with this, we end the analysis of 100 questions. So what you can do, you can go through all the 100 questions. Then when we go through, you have a clear picture, you know, where questions are taken from or how they are set questions these days. So throughout the analysis, 100 questions, we can say, so now we get a lot of questions for interpretations. They give a passage from a poem or a novel or a play or even a critical test, then ask you to interpret on the spot. We get around 4 or 5 questions. Sometimes tough questions, we don't know where they take that from. So there we have to use your instincts. Then they also give importance to classic text like Victorian text or Shakespeare. That's also there. So go through all these questions once again. Then with this, let's end this analysis. You can look forward to another analysis of 100 questions same year, 2021 December, shift 2. Okay. Please subscribe to this channel and you'll get notifications when we publish the further videos. Thank you so much. And you can contact this number 755-0100-920 to join the course. All the best for your preparation. Thank you.